GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I believe it's a big challenge for our building to keep things in perspective and to, if we're going to get addicted to anything, let's get addicted to the process.
And we welcome you to Trust the Podcast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This is episode 112.
Episode 38 to 3. I'm sorry, 112. Sorry, I was just kind of looking ahead there, Ryan. I apologize. I was so close. What did I say? 42 to 7 last week?
I mean, you definitely predicted the blowout that it was.
I knew it was going to be a blowout. But it was one of those things where I knew, but I wasn't, 100% sure. Like, because it can't possibly.
It's the Pittsburgh Steelers, man.
They couldn't have possibly routed the Pittsburgh Steelers like that, right?
I know Lewis is probably so broken up right now, but hey, it's the Buffalo Bills versus Pittsburgh Steelers. You can hear us on BetterLiveThanDead.com, GearNetwork.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. As always, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well to stay up to date on the latest podcasts. I am Ryan Wolfe at WolfeBLTD, joined by my co-host, John Cimino at IamJCMoney. John, holy crap. What a game from the Buffalo Bills on Sunday.
So it was kind of crazy because at the same time that the game was going, not only was the Jets-Dolphins game going on too, but I was actually announcing as the guest host of a UPW Pro Wrestling show. So I couldn't really pay attention to either game, but I was getting filled in either by you or by people in the crowd in between matches that were kind of letting me know what was going on and everything. And it was very clearly evident, though, the first play that I did see, that it was going to be the runaway. It got to a point where I was like, how close am I to my prediction? How close am I to my prediction? And that became the running gag.
Well, hey, it's Tuesday night, so we haven't had a whole lot of time to digest this, but it still feels great. The luster is still there from the blowout victory, which the statistics provide the fact that this game was just hard. It's not something we've seen in a very long time, if ever, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. First off, I want to mention, though, because with the Bills being so hurt, they're like a walking mash unit. We're trying to keep up on the injury reports to keep people up to date. So prior to the game on Sunday, Buffalo announced that cornerback Christian Benford, he has a broken hand, wide receiver Jamison Crowder with his broken leg, tight end Dawson Knox, wide receiver Jake Kumaro, and safety Jordan Poyer were out. Now, funny thing about that, John, is let me grab the tweet here really quick from Monday night that I saw that had me cracked up. Essentially, it was a reporter from Pittsburgh saying, My sources have told me that the Buffalo Bills chose to sit Jordan Poyer out because they wanted him to be healthy for a better team. And the guy said, I thought Pittsburgh was a better team. Turns out Pittsburgh no longer is a better team. And I mean, that's kind of the thought that we had for a while. Like guys like Dawson Knox, who has been playing through injury, and Jordan Poyer, who's been playing through injury, you're like, okay, maybe they just want to take extra time out. And also, same thing goes for linebacker Tremaine Edmonds, who didn't play last Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You figure that they're just taking precautionary measures so that way, when they actually do play an important game like Sunday, which we'll talk about, that you have them as healthy as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at what's coming now in terms of the schedule, I mean, the biggest game of the season for them is going to be this coming Sunday at 4:25 against the Chiefs. But you get past that, then you're looking. I mean, the schedule's really set up pretty good for them. The Packers aren't playing very well. The Jets are hit or miss. Right now they're over 500 for the first time in like 40 years. So, but it's not like a team that I'd be overly worried about. The Vikings, Browns, Lions. The Lions maybe. Would be something that I would probably circle as being an important game. But I mean, resting them up for the big games, for the big heavyweight games, the Chiefs. I mean, that's a pretty good problem for the Buffalo Bills to have.
So the one thing that I'll mention that again I've I don't want to get too far off the beaten path here, but when you look at games and you see here that you're like, oh yeah, the Buffalo Bills are, they're playing big teams and it's a big game, and you're like, yeah, that's true, but you're like, oh, they may struggle against a Packers, or they may struggle to stop a Lions offense, which we've seen the Lions offense has been stopped the past couple of weeks, but they score a lot of points, and that's the thing. It's crazy to think that a Lions offense would score a lot of points, but that's where we're at right now. They
score a lot of points, but they have a lot of points scored against them.
I was just about to say that I believe they're on pace to allow the most points scored ever in a season, which is mind blowing. But it's the same thing we saw on Sunday with the Buffalo Bills and against the Pittsburgh Steelers, is that they continue to find ways to win. I mean, this was a blowout for sure, but it always seems like, aside from, playing in the devil's asshole almost quite literally in Miami, the Buffalo Bills could be undefeated right now. They should really be undefeated because they should have beat the Dolphins, but I'm going to just let that one, whatever the saying is, you let the old whatevers lie. I don't care. It is what it is.
Yeah. I'm of the mindset, though, where I'm glad that it's out of the way now, so they're not feeling immense pressure and slipping up and losing to a Detroit or, the Dolphins later. Because God forbid, could you imagine if the Bills walked into Miami into the Miami game later on in the year undefeated, and the Dolphins won that one? Could you imagine?
That can deflate you real quick, yeah.
Could you imagine, social media and Dolphins fan aside, that could be a kick in the beanbag that could, at that point in time of the season.
And it's a different sport. Down. It's a different sport, but you look at what happened to the Mets. The Mets were 10.5 games up. They lose that lead and they're just flat.
Right.
So it's exactly. when do you want to struggle? You have to, and it's you have to hit your stride at the right time of the season, which again, it's the 4th or 5th week of the season right now. I can't remember. The 5th week of the season?
We just completed week 5.
Holy crap. The season is already on. It's blowing by here, but John, let's run through some stats here that'll really blow your mind.
All right. I'm here.
The margin of victory for the Buffalo Bills, 35 points, marks the largest margin of victory for the Bills in 26 regular season matchups all time versus Pittsburgh. Buffalo also handed Pittsburgh their worst margin of defeat since Pittsburgh lost 51-0 to the Cleveland Browns on September 10th, 1989. It was also the first game versus Pittsburgh all time that Buffalo did not allow a sack. So in 26 matchups, no sack was allowed for the first time ever. Also, with the win, Sean McDermott's career regular season record improved to 53-33, pushing him past Marv Levy for the highest regular season win percentage in franchise history. Levy is at a 6.15, and McDermott now at 6.16, so 0.616.
And he's got, McDermott can coach this team as long as he wants to now at this point. So he's definitely got a chance to be, when you think of the Buffalo Bills, you already think of McDermott, with Levy, but by the end of the day, Sean McDermott arguably could be the number 1 coach that you think of when you think of the Buffalo Bills, moving Levy to number 2 in thought process, and that's kind of crazy that we're living through that time right now.
And hey, I've got a really quick conspiracy theory before we jump into our 3 big things. The Carolina Panthers recently just fired their head coach, whom they paid like $70 million to fire. I wouldn't be totally surprised. I don't think Sean McDermott's going anywhere, but I would not be surprised to hear that David Tepper is tiptoeing around Sean McDermott to maybe say, look, I wasn't the owner when you were here and you were the one that got away, but you're the one that got away, and maybe they'll try to do something about it. I don't know, but that's just my
I can't imagine. Honestly, I can't. I would be very surprised. The only thing right now,
the only thing that I would think is that you start to hear some rumblings and Sean McDermott gets a contract extension or something. Like that might be what it is, where Buffalo says, look, we're not even taking the chance. We're going to sign you to a bigger deal or a longer deal, whatever. It might not work in conjunction with that, but I'm just saying I would not be surprised in the coming months if there is some sort of contract extension for Sean McDermott, just to fend off the buzzards or whatever, if you will.
Well, we'll see. I aim to believe he's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's going to have himself.
That's just my college football conspiracy theory, mine, John.
Yeah, I'm going to go. He's going to be the Pete Carroll for this team, and he's going to be there. Even when Geno Smith decides to become the Buffalo Bills quarterback once Josh Allen moves to Denver.
Oh Lord!
In about 10 years,
it's like when in like, you know what I'm saying though, in college football, when it's like oh hey, John Cimino coaching for Fart University. Yeah, Notre Dame wants to hire him. They're hot on his trail, and all of a sudden you get a 10-year contract extension from your current college, and you're like, I'm happy to be where I am. That's kind of what I was thinking.
That's a very it's accurate. I would have dipped though for Notre Dame. I can't lie.
Oh, absolutely. Our three big things brought to you by PuckLuck.com, your one-stop resource for all of your NHL sports betting action. PuckLuck provides win percentages and score projections for each and every National Hockey League game to tilt the ice in your favor. Not sure what to bet or just
Hockey is here, baby.
PuckLuck provides expert picks to get the puck bouncing your way. Please note, PuckLuck.com, no way affiliated with the National Hockey League. It's teams with the NHLPA. PuckLuck.com provides data related to gambling and cannot guarantee the success of any suggested or related wagers. As always, please gamble responsibly. And as John mentioned,
buddy.
Hockey's back, baby.
Hockey's back. My Calgary Flames tomorrow at 9:30 get to see the new Flames after losing quite a few franchise players in the offseason, but I think they've recovered well. So tomorrow at 9:30 Eastern.
And look at it now,
game.
too. The Buffalo Sabres are back this week as well, and they look to be a lot of fun. But we're talking about the Buffalo Bills.
Well, wait. Hold on. When do they play? When is their game? Is it tomorrow?
It's Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember the date. The Thursday the 13th.
Thursday the 13th? Okay.
Yes, we've hit that time of year where I don't know what days of the week are. And I already can't believe it's the 11th of October, but whatever. Running down the offensive stats here, John, no surprise. We start off, as always, with quarterback Josh Allen. 20 of 31, 424 passing yards, 4 touches, 1 pick with 5 carries for 42 yards. The 424 yards mark the most a Bill has ever passed for in regulation. It is his 17th game since 2020 with 300-plus passing yards, tied for second most in the National Football League. Allen also passed Peyton Manning for 4th most total touchdowns in a player's first 5 seasons. Peyton Manning, again, we mentioned last week, had 147. Allen's 98-yard touchdown pass tied the longest touchdown pass in Bills history. If you may remember, John, it came on November 22nd, 2009. Ryan Fitzpatrick to Terrell Owens at the Jacksonville Jaguars. What a blast from the past there.
Yeah, that was I do remember that vividly. And you know, as you're reading off these stats, and I'm kind of reading along with you, it's funny you say 17th game since 2020 with 300-plus passing yards. I remember vividly on this very podcast when he hadn't hit that 300-yard mark, and you were concerned about, can he do it? Can he do it? Can he do it? Time flies, man.
Yeah. He has developed quickly, and I think exceeded all expectations, to be quite honest.
It was like an overnight development, though. It was like, 1 week it was he was kind of this skittish like this, and then it just magically clicked, and he got his first 300-yard passing game out of the way, and it's been off to the races since then for him. Like, this dude, no it's like you can't write it any better. Like, we knew or at least I knew. I had been preaching since you guys drafted him that he was good, but even I didn't realize it was like, okay, that was the light switch. Oh, that's it, really? Boom, gone, and he's become this guy now. So it's fun to see, and I'm proud to say that I've been on his bandwagon since he was drafted. And
you have been.
Yes, I have been. It's documented.
I can go back on the podcast and we can listen to it. Honestly, it's. I had doubts because I've been here. I've been here before. I got the Bills PTSD, but not anymore.
Nope.
So that passing touchdown, John, this is a crazy stat. That passing touchdown, 98 yards, was the longest scrimmage touchdown in the first 90 seconds of a game in National Football League history.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That is insane, considering the NFL is 100 years old or whatever it is now.
Josh Allen finished the first half with 348 yards and 4 touchdown passes, both career highs in the first half of the game. His 348 yards are tied for the second most passing yards by a quarterback in the first half of a game since 1991. Josh Allen, also the first quarterback this season with 300-plus passing yards in the first half, and also after 5 weeks, Josh Allen leads the National Football League with 1,651 passing yards. I tried to get that out before I had the hiccup. Sorry.
Well, I tell you,
there's a lot there.
That's proof positive that if you build a team and you build and have that solid offensive line, and protect the quarterback like the Buffalo Bills have done with Josh Allen, I mean, yes, Stephon Diggs is a, he's the guy in Buffalo in terms of the wide receivers. But I would argue that at this point now, based on that offensive line and Josh Allen being who he is, the fact that he is able to now develop a Gabe Davis, like we were talking about a few podcasts ago, we saw glimmers of what Gabe Davis could be, and that's why they were comfortable in letting Cole Beasley go, because they knew what they had in him. When you build a solid offensive line like that, protect the quarterback, who's a good quarterback that can do the things, and you strategically put some weapons around him, you're able to develop the other areas and become a cohesive unit like this. I mean, this is the model for how you should build a football team if you're a franchise.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they were talking about on Sunday, about how Brandon Beane came in, traded a bunch of guys, and then that first year when he drafted Tremaine Edmonds and he drafted Josh Allen in the same draft, like, the teams are going to look back at this and say, this is how you build a franchise. This is how you build a team from the inside out, essentially. And right now, there's no doubt about it that through 5 weeks, again, only 5 weeks, the season's not over yet, but Josh Allen is the runaway pick for the National Football League MVP, because not only is he tearing the cover off the ball every single week, but he continues to come out and bounce back from adversity and completely just, he comes back from the Miami game. They struggle against Baltimore, and then he just completely has the most improbable comeback that we've seen in quite a while. And then he comes out against Pittsburgh and just completely nukes the defense. So it's like you continue to see this stuff where people say, like, oh, well, Patrick Mahomes should be the MVP. But then you look at it, it's the thought process of, okay, what are your expectations compared to how well that they're playing? And the expectations for Josh Allen were high, and he's exceeded those expectations so far through 5 weeks.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to say he exceeds the expectations, because he does this all the time, it seems.
John, let me hit you with this, because I got it popped up on my phone. Matt Beauvais from a local media, I can't remember which channel he's on. I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't watch much local Buffalo news. Through 5 games, Josh Allen has 1,651 passing yards, as mentioned, 225 rushing yards, and 16 total touchdowns. Right now, Josh Allen is on pace for 5,613 passing yards, 765 rushing yards, and 54 total touchdowns. So I would have to say, I mean, for me at least, coming into this season, I could not have predicted that. And I think that's one of those situations where you look at it and you go, holy crap, he exceeded expectations, despite the fact that expectations, let's be honest, for Josh Allen were very high heading into this
right season. Absolutely. And as I look ahead into the crystal ball of schedules here, I mean, really, the schedule heavily favors the Bills and Josh Allen to be able to do these things. Like, there's really no reason that the Buffalo Bills shouldn't run away with this division and rack up all those stats and be another record-setting Bills team. So the schedule certainly favors and would support him exceeding these expectations, continuing to exceed these expectations.
Speaking of exceeding expectations and looking through the offense, wide receiver Gabe Davis, 3 receptions and 6 targets for a career high 171 yards and 2 touches, including the 98-yard touchdown on the first drive of the game. Davis is the 3rd player in team history with 2 60-plus receiving touchdowns in the same game. And as per AWS's Next Gen Stats, Davis traveled 104.1 yards from snap to score, the most distance covered on a reception this season. That was his 98-yard touchdown, which was pretty impressive. Yes. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs, 8 receptions and 11 targets for 102 yards and 1 touchdown. Kind of crazy, John, that this has become the norm for Diggs, this kind of stat line, 8 receptions, 102 yards, a touchdown. I looked at it and was like, oh, ho-hum, that's a normal week for Diggs in a good way. AWS Next Gen Stats reports Diggs reached 20.68 miles per hour on his 41-yard reception from Josh Allen in the fourth quarter, 7th fastest speed of the weekend. Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Tutu Atwell, a great football name right there, led the league this week with a speed of 21.46 miles per hour. Both very fast, very fast.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Also, wide receiver Khalil Shakir, 3 receptions for 5 targets, 75 yards and a touchdown. His first career touchdown reception on a 24-yard pass from Josh Allen. He also recorded 34 kickoff return yards. Shakir stepped in for the injured Isaiah McKenzie, and looked real good in the process too. With the announcers for the game saying, hey, Brandon Beane might have found another steal in the draft with Khalil Shakir.
It could very well be. And again, it kind of paints the picture that I had mentioned earlier about building that solid foundation, that offensive line, and being able to develop other key position players through that. You take care of the quarterback, you take care of the offensive line, you're going to be able to get, find these things. It's how the Patriots did it for so long with Tom Brady. It's where it was called the Patriot way, it's now called the process in Buffalo, and that's just proof positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking defensively, same thing. It's all about the process. They have linebacker Tyrell Dodson, who stepped in for an injured Tremaine Edmonds. He shows up, 11 total tackles, 7 solo. He had 1 sack and 1 tackle for loss. It was his first start since 2020. His sack of Pittsburgh quarterback Kenny Pickett was his second career sack and his first since September 13th, 2020, versus the Jets. Also, linebacker Von Miller and defensive end A.J. Epinesa each recorded 1 sack, and cornerback Kyer Elam recorded his first career interception, which was a big day for Kyer Elam because he was getting picked on, understandably so, because he was struggling at times. But these are the kind of games that you look back at and say, okay, you put the bad games on tape so you can learn from them and get better. Not to mention too, with Tre'Davious White waiting in the wings and Christian Benford coming back here soon from a broken hand, a lot of pressure is going to be taken off Kyer Elam, and that certainly might help him out even more so. So again, it's a different way for the Buffalo Bills because last year it felt like they were continually building towards the way that they finished the season.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now it feels like they're taking these negatives and turning them into positives with, hey, the rookie cornerback gets to play a lot and gets to figure it out and learn and grow as he plays through actual NFL games, because at the end of the day, it's like any sport, they say that the best way to grow and to learn is to play. So the fact that he can play and kind of have the pressure off of him, with the Bills winning 38-3, it's really good for his development, I think.
Absolutely. It's great for his development, great overall for the team. I mean, this, the culture that they've built is something to behold. And honestly, we're, as your stats indicate every week on a week-to-week basis, what we're watching is something that doesn't come around very often, and it's something that really should be enjoyed because you don't know when you might see it again. Although
Absolutely.
The Bills seem to be doing, repeating everything, but like pushing it forward year after year. Like I feel like I said that in the 2020 season, that the record numbers are putting on you might not see stuff like this again. And then came 2021, and they were doing the things there, and you just enjoy it because you don't know what you're getting next year. But like the way things are going this year, it's like Jesus, man.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that one. I mean, that's just the best way to put it. It's just Jesus. Just Jesus. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Pretty much.
Speaking of stats, we're going to have some more stats here on our third of the 3 big things. But first off, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after this with more Trust the Podcast here on the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And we are back here on Trust the Podcast, our third of the 3 big things. A quick segment this week because we've got some exciting stuff to talk about in the look ahead. A little more on the victory, John. Buffalo's point differential per StatMuse. Buffalo's plus 91 point differential through 5 weeks is the best of any team in the National Football League. Next best is plus 47. Both the 49ers and Eagles are at plus 47. Buffalo is second in the National Football League in points scored at 152. Kansas City leads the league after Monday Night Football at 159 points. They are also tied for first with San Francisco for the least number of points allowed at 61. Not bad so far through 5 weeks. Center Mitch Morse recorded the 100th game of his career and also subsequently the 100th start of his career on Sunday. Also, the Buffalo Bills finished the first half with 400 yards of offense, becoming the first National Football League team to reach 400 yards in the first half since Tampa did it in 2020 at Detroit on 12/26/20. Also, since 1991, John, the Buffalo Bills have never reached 400 yards in a first half ever.
That's absurd. And again, history, man. What we are seeing is these are Buffalo Bills teams that I feel are going to be as revered or looked back as fondly as the teams of the 90s. The only thing is can they get to the Super Bowl? They don't need to get to 4 in a row, but can they get to 1, maybe 2? Can they win one of those? We're watching history here, folks, and it's great for the area and great for Bills fans all around.
Yeah, just one step at a time, and it's one big step that we've never seen or haven't seen in our lifetimes or haven't seen ever. So it's pretty crazy.
I'm curious to see. I'm wondering, like, I'm very excited about next week's game. I really think that we could see some absurd, insane stats on both offenses, the Bills and the Chiefs. I mean, Mahomes still does Mahomes things, and while it looks like the Chiefs are having struggling a little more than the Bills are in certain aspects, they're still the Chiefs. Yep. And it's going to be a real fun game to watch. But I mean, just these stats alone, it's something to behold. I record every single Bills game. Now, I admit I haven't watched last week's Bills game because I didn't feel I needed to. But, in the same, I record every game every week, and I do review it every week at some point. So I'm sure when I look at this, at the Steelers game that passed, I mean, I have no reason to believe that the Chiefs are going – I don't think it's going to go to the wire, I think, with the Chiefs this year like it did, but it could. This would certainly be the game to do it. Either way, man, this is just a solid freaking team that there's so many things about it that are awesome that it's hard to highlight in this podcast.
I agree. We'll talk about the Chiefs in a minute here. That's the one thing, too, that I'm trying to keep it feeling logical, because a lot of the stuff you look at it and you're like, this is hard to believe, but it's become so normal. Like, I remember back when the podcast, when we'd be like, oh my God, like you mentioned, John, Josh Allen, first 300-yard passing day. You're like, oh my God, that's crazy. And now we're just like, Josh Allen threw for 400 yards today. Okay.
Right. Comparing him to, names like Peyton Manning, like, he's hitting that level with his numbers and his performance. Now, the one thing that I'm still concerned about is the fact that he leads the team in rushing as well. And, I heard a little birdie that the Buffalo Bills have reached out to Carolina, inquiring about Christian McCaffrey. I don't know the truth about that, but
we'll talk about that here in a minute.
I will say if they do land that, you might as well just give them the trophy now, because I don't see anyone beating that team. So
McCaffrey. first off on our look ahead, we'll just talk some injury news really fast, and then we'll talk about Christian McCaffrey here. Updates not available today, but this week will show us how injured certain players are. And this is what I've thought, again, because we now know almost essentially without being confirmation from the team, players have been held out in the past to avoid getting hurt against lesser opponents. So for me, John, the status of Jordan Poyer, safety Jordan Poyer, linebacker Tremaine Edmonds, wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie, and defensive tackle Jordan Phillips, who appeared to have re-aggravated his hamstring injury on Sunday against the Steelers. These are the big names I'm keeping an eye on to say, okay, this is as close to a playoff game as the Buffalo Bills are going to have in the regular season, not only because it is the Chiefs, not only because this could decide home field advantage, this could decide if the playoffs come through the road to the Super Bowl, goes through Kansas City, does it go through Buffalo? These are one of those games that are very important, because
absolutely.
Not only for optical purposes, but for tie-breaking purposes. So It's very important to see, do the Buffalo Bills have a healthy defense on Sunday? But speaking of healthy and an inability to stay healthy, running back Christian McCaffrey. This has been the hot rumor throughout the entire National Football League in the past 24, 36 hours. Ever since the Carolina Panthers fired their head coach, Matt Rule, which probably came a little too late.
A little bit.
Yeah, but they held on, I guess, so that's great. But owner David Tepper of the Carolina Panthers essentially said something in a nutshell of, we need to develop a winning culture. We don't have a winning culture, so we need to clean house, essentially. Mm-hmm. The reason why we bring that up, running back Christian McCaffrey, who has been rumored in the offseason, Buffalo apparently reached out in the offseason and has reportedly reached out, depending on who you ask about, relatively recently regarding the availability of running back Christian McCaffrey. Now, why is this important? First off, the deal is very doable. And I say that because Spot Track points out on Monday, October 10th, acquiring running back Christian McCaffrey at the 11-1 NFL trade deadline, which is only a few weeks away, you're guaranteed to pay him $575,000 if you acquire him this season.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, it's $12 million. 2024, $12 million. 2025, $12.2 million. John, guess what? Guess what the big deal about that is, though?
What's the big deal? Is there an opt-out?
No guarantee of anything aside from the $575,000 you'd have to pay him this season.
So they could borrow him essentially, and depending on his ability to stay healthy, because we know that's a big gigantic question mark with him. We know he's explosive and he's an incredible dynamic player that made the Carolina offense formidable when he was on the field. But his biggest question mark has always been, can he stay healthy?
Yes. And that's the other thing too, is you don't want to pay a 27, 28, 29-year-old running back. You're looking here, he's got a cap hit of 19.5, and 15.45. You don't want to do that. So
you also don't want to pay $12 million for RBBC if that's kind of the way you're going to go.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is why it's so interesting for the Buffalo Bills. People have started talking on Twitter as one does. But you say to yourself, how can, if Christian McCaffrey becomes a Buffalo Bill, let's just, throw crap at a wall and see if it sticks here. He can run the ball. Yes, we know that. But what is one thing that Christian McCaffrey does very well?
Catches the ball.
Catches the ball. So what can you do with Christian McCaffrey? Oh, that's right. Why don't you turn him into like a hybrid slot receiver, right?
Yep. We could do that.
In his National Football League career right now, in 63 games, Christian McCaffrey has 383 receptions for 3,203 yards and 18 touchdowns. So you can put him behind Josh Allen. You can hand the ball off. You can run the ball, whatever.
Yeah.
But you can also put him out wide. And then there's another. It's essentially taking what it seemed like what they wanted with James Cook and just slamming the accelerator. Because again, the cost to acquire Christian McCaffrey, maybe it's a lot, maybe it's too much. But at the end of the day, if the Buffalo Bills have been sniffing around, and that's the one thing that Pro Football Talk points out, we often hear when it's like, okay, so-and-so is interested in player X. And then Team Y goes, that's not true. Those are the kind of rumors that we hear and the denials we hear right before or right around times that deals are consummated. And it's the right time of year. It's like the perfect storm. You've got the Buffalo Bills have a bye week rolling up here shortly, which would allow them to get a new player acclimated pretty quickly. The financial cost for the Buffalo Bills is next to nothing. And at this point, you just say to yourself, hey, it's worth a shot if the Buffalo Bills feel like they need that extra shot in the arm, but also they can make it happen. Go for it.
I would say
it's like with OBJ. It's like exactly like with OBJ. If you can do it and you can make it happen, it's the rich getting richer, and you can never have too much depth.
Yeah, you can never have too much depth. Rich getting richer, but also the like you said, I think the sticking point for me would be the no guarantee with him.
That's a big deal.
It really is. I mean, you could really do a lot with that. Even if he is one and done, and the one is you get a chip, you don't need this team has proven it doesn't necessarily need that star running back. It wouldn't need it ongoing. So you could win the chip, wish him well, let him go. He can get paid somewhere else that's not going to really do well, but it'll cap off a career, so to speak, for him. And the Bills can move on, kind of rebuild consistently, moving forward in the model of consistency that they've displayed that they already can. Like, it would be rich getting richer. I don't think the Buffalo Bills need Christian McCaffrey, but it wouldn't hurt to have him.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's a situation essentially where, and this is again me throwing crap at a wall and seeing if it sticks, but you bring a guy like that in, and at the end of the season, you say essentially, how bad do you want to be here?
Right.
Bad
And
enough, bad enough that you're willing to restructure your contract in a team friendly fashion,
right.
or not.
And here's one thing to point out too is that in Carolina, Christian McCaffrey had to be the guy because who were they surrounding him with? Who was the quarterback during his tenure there? It was Cam Newton as he was on his way out, and then Sam Darnold. That's not. He had to be the guy. He was that offense. That offense. Carolina started 3-0 last year, not because Sam Darnold joined the team, but it was because Christian McCaffrey was on the field, and they didn't. And then the Panthers didn't take that turn for the worst until he got injured and was gone. McCaffrey wouldn't have to be that guy in Buffalo. He could remain healthy because he may not need to touch the ball nearly as much as he would have had to in Carolina. So there's
maybe we're spending too much time on this.
It's nice to talk about those things though, because you 5 years ago, Ryan, we couldn't really talk about that with the Buffalo Bills. It was always like, oh, it's a matter of time. Oh, maybe they're catching lightning in a bottle. Oh, maybe it's
and I was going to say,
and now it's like, dude, they really don't need these sexy name people. If they needed them, OBJ would be here by now. Bills don't need him.
I think with OBJ, I think the thing is that he's waiting until he's healthy to sign, which I get that. So like next month, essentially after the trade deadline, I think is when OBJ is going to sign. But I mean, let's be honest. I think we all know where he's going to end up. But it's a situation where we talk about like the rich get richer. But this is what you need in professional football and professional sports is depth, but talented depth. Because I could go out and have 10 defensive linemen or 10 pass rushers or 10 wide receivers, but there's a big difference between saying Isaiah McKenzie went down and no offense to Khalil Shakir, but essentially saying Isaiah McKenzie's hurt. We've got Khalil Shakir to step up, or Isaiah McKenzie's hurt. We've got Odell Beckham Jr. to step up.
Right. Rich get richer, man.
Or, hey, Devin Singletary's been ineffective, so we're gonna put the ball in Zach Moss's hands more, or James Cook's hands more, or hey, Devin Singletary's struggling lately, and we're gonna put the ball in Christian McCaffrey's hands. What sounds better? What seems like it's better? I mean, that's just the long and the short of it.
That is, and I mean, a good position to be in if you are the Buffalo Bills team, if you're Sean McDermott, if you're Brandon Beane, great position to be in.
The one thing I want to point out too, and again, I don't know how the cap works and all this. I'm not a GM, obviously. I'm that's clear as day. But the reason why Christian McCaffrey is so cheap this year is because most of his money was in a signing bonus that was already paid. You can take you are able to essentially do those cap gymnastics to say, if you want Christian McCaffrey next year and you want to keep him, which I think is absurd and probably would want to pay him $12 million. But there's a way you can take things and you can switch things around and say, oh yeah, we'll turn this to a signing bonus and blah, 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 blah. So you only have to pay X amount, whatever. You can do that stuff. And good GMs like Brandon Beane are able to do those cap gymnastics to make that stuff work, which is why when people say the Bills can't afford Odell Beckham Jr. at the current cap situation that they have, there's always a way to make things work. There's always a way to work around it. And I think if the Buffalo Bills want a Christian McCaffrey or want an Odell Beckham Jr., they'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with either of that. When you have a chance to go to a winning culture that is heavily favored to represent the conference that they're in at the Super Bowl, and also favored to win it if they are in there, I mean, you take that chance. You go if you get it.
Absolutely. I would agree with that one. And hey, now we're talking about week 6, man. The Buffalo Bills are the Kansas City Chiefs. Sunday, October 16th, 4:25 p.m. CBS. The long-awaited rematch, but quite possibly, to this point, the game of the year. The last time these two teams faced off, we know exactly what happened. It was quite possibly the greatest game of all time. I
will put it down as absolutely the greatest game I've ever been alive to watch. It was that good. With perhaps maybe the Super Bowl, the 28-3 comeback being like 1B there. That divisional round last year was just insane. I can't tell you how many times I've watched that game start to finish.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, man.
As a football fan, as a fan of the game of professional football, I know Bills fans probably can't really watch that game because they still get butthurt about it. But if you're looking at it from a football fan perspective, one that appreciates the history of the game and loves the game, you can sit and you can watch that with an open mind and be like, this was a damn good game.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that one. There's no doubt about it.
Ratings are going to be through the roof. I'll tell you that one.
Everybody's
going to be watching this game.
Ratings are going to be through the roof. It's going to be insane to watch. Again, the last time they played, Kansas City defeated Buffalo 42-36 in overtime. It was so good that they changed the rules. I mean, that's just all you need to know.
That tells you.
Yeah. On Monday Night Football, the Buffalo, not the Buffalo Bills, Monday Night Football, the Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Las Vegas Raiders 30-29. It probably should have been a little different. Kansas City definitely struggled the first half with the Raiders, and then obviously made their comeback in the second half. And then for some dumb reason, Josh McDaniels went for it for 2 instead of just getting the extra point, making it 30-30. I don't understand, but the Raiders are the Raiders, and that's that. I mean, I don't know.
Okay, so you know what? Speaking of that game and just in general with the topic, and this is obviously a BLTD thing and not necessarily a Buffalo Bills Trust the Podcast thing, but I'm curious about your take on this. The roughing the passer calls that have been happening of late. That's universally being like what? It's a universal what the fuck with some of these. We had one last night with David Carr. What the hell, man? What do you think? How do you feel about that? And do you think that something like that really could? It could. I mean, I would think that something like that could benefit the Josh Allens of the world too. But do you really want it to? You know,
Yeah,
what is your thought? What is your thought on that?
End of the day, I think it's an overreaction because of the whole issue with Tua getting hurt, coming back. They want to try to protect the quarterback as much as possible. The call on Tom Brady, I don't understand. Like, you get that call, you get the call with Tom Brady on one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, you've got DeMar Hamlin hitting Kenny Pickett, no call, sliding, and then just tackling through him, no call. Last night on Monday Night Football, it was clear as day that Derek Carr had fumbled the ball.
I said David again. I meant Derek.
Derek Carr fumbled the ball, clearly strip sacked, was tackled because the man was sacking him, sacking through him to get the ball. Had the ball in his possession, him being the Kansas City defender, had the ball in his hands, and was still called for roughing the passer. Twitter had pointed out that was the first time in NFL history that a fumble recovery turned into a roughing the passer. But again, I think it's an overreaction to a problem that the NFL will have to now, because they've kind of got egg on their face. They have to now re-educate their referees, because yes, in this day and age, in this NFL, you have to side with the quarterback, and if the quarterback is hit, you're going to give the benefit of the doubt. And they talked about before the game too that I know that I think it was John Perry is the referee who works for ESPN. He had mentioned that
yes,
that is the roughing the passer call is the only rule in the National Football League rule book where it says, if you're not sure, always err on the side of throwing the flag.
Yeah, because I did hear him say that, and actually Steve Young followed it up with, "Man, I wish I were playing today."
Yeah, But then again, you look at it, and you say to yourself, because it's a bad look for the league because we see a lot more now. Like back in the day, it was I'm making the call, I made the call, that's it, deal with it. But now we see a lot of referees coming together and discussing and either changing calls or making different calls. My thought process is, if you're erring on the side of caution, you throw the flag, you discuss and say, okay, I'm not sure. What do you think? Again, I'm not a referee, but that's just what I We've seen it happen before where pass interference gets called. They throw the flag, they discuss and say, after discussion, no pass interference.
Right.
Because it's like when they're reviewing a play and they say the call on the field is the most important thing because you need substantial evidence to overturn it. So you can say, naked eye, it looked like a roughing the passer, but then you discuss it and say, after discussion, it wasn't roughing the passer. It was, a legal play. Whereas if you see Tom Brady get spiked into the ground and then bitch to the referees and the referees go, after discussion, it's roughing the passer. That's a bad look. Again, I know the NFL is not much about optics, but just thinking as a fan, logistically, I would agree with saying, hey, if you're not sure, which I mean, at this point, you probably should be pretty sure that if it's aggressive, if I'm taking a quarterback and he won't go down and I, Brock Lesnar him and belly to back suplex him into the ground, it's a 15-yard penalty. But if you're just trying to tackle the man and take him, like with Patrick Mahomes, we see him all the time. Mm-hmm. You can't just wrap him up and tackle him. You almost have to kind of like pirouette him into the ground.
Exactly.
Because you got to get him off his feet.
Right.
A guy like Tom Brady, you don't need to do that because he's 75 years old and runs like a 10.540 at this point in time. So it's again, I know it's hard to say because it's apples to oranges, and some quarterbacks will get calls, some quarterbacks won't get calls.
Right.
I don't think a guy like Josh Allen would get a call like that, just because you look at him and you're like, he's a big young guy. You gotta be a little harder with him to the ground. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to call it on Brady, or for Brady, you got to call it for everybody. If you're going to call it on that Derek Carr play, you got to call it for everybody. And that, I think, is going to become a problem quickly in the National Football League that they're going to have to fix. I think it was much like the concussion protocol changes, where people are pissed because Teddy Bridgewater passed the concussion protocol but looked concussed, and that's why they kept him out. Mm-hmm. I think that's good. That's a good.
I actually don't disagree with that at all. Sorry, Dolphins fans. You guys bitch about everything, but I mean, it's like you rather the player safety. Like, I saw a Dolphins fan on Twitter that actually was like so mad about that they retweeted a tweet from Chris Nowinski. And was like, looks like you don't know, you really don't know what you're talking about. You call yourself Harvard educated. No wonder why WWE didn't pick you back up. And I'm like, what? Like, dude, it was because he didn't want to go to WWE after he had that massive concussion that he had performing for them. He was like, yo, I can't do this. No. And he willingly left. And he studied up even more and became a huge advocate for concussion protocols. So maybe Teddy Bridgewater did pass the concussion protocol, but he's still a human being. And
those are the situations that we've seen too in the past, where players will pass the concussion protocol and then a day or two later or later that afternoon are starting to show concussion symptoms, because that's how concussions work. So overreacting in that aspect, perfectly fine. Because at the end of the day, you can round off the edges there and say, look, maybe we went a little too far. Maybe we didn't go far enough, but here's where we're at now, and we're in a good spot.
Better to be safe than sorry in those instances.
Precisely.
I've seen too many instances in the world of professional wrestling. And before anybody says this isn't pro wrestling, wrestling's fake, yada, yada, all that stuff. No, I've seen too many instances where not dealing with concussions at an appropriate time, or not dealing with them at all, really impacts some of the wrestlers that I've come into contact with in their older years now. Some of the ones that I met that were veterans 20 years ago, now they're just like they're out of it. They're unhealthy, they're mentally unstable, they didn't get the proper treatment because there wasn't the proper education or the knowledge back then that there is today. And what I make sure to educate today's crop of wrestlers is the importance of looking out for yourself, looking out for the symptoms, not doing anything dumb, taking the time to relax and listening to your body. And these are things that, forget about the game, forget about the team, forget about the Super Bowl, forget about WrestleMania, forget about all that. It's your life, because that stuff's all going to go on no matter what.
Well, the one thing I was going to mention too is you don't even have to dig that deep. The reason why we're here is Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. And
exactly.
he suffered his second concussion in 4 days against the Bengals a couple weeks ago, and he has not returned to play.
Right.
And the Dolphins don't know when he's going to come back.
Right.
And that should not happen. I mean, because look at, in my personal opinion, do I like the Miami Dolphins? No. Is it better off when they're bad for my personal gain? Yes. But it sucks to see a talented player finally get his opportunity to shine in the National Football League when it was looking like at this point last year he'd be playing his way, into a second string role and may never get the shot to start again and that, whatever. Mm-hmm. So now he's got a new coach, got a new offense, got new weapons around him, and he's balling out. And again, if it weren't the AFC East, I'd probably be super hype about it because you love to see those kind of stories. You love to see those comeback stories of, hey, this guy struggled with bad coaching with whomever was the head coach of the Dolphins, whomever was on the offense at the time, and now they're playing to his strengths and he's doing great. And now he's out indefinitely because his brains have been completely scrambled, for lack of a better explanation. Right. And who knows if he'll come back this year. Who knows if when he comes back, he'll be fine. I remember back to, and maybe this wasn't the situation. Maybe I'm just looking too far into it, but I remember back years ago, Trent Edwards with the Buffalo Bills, who was playing pretty good. And then there was that game against the Cardinals where he got his head almost quite literally taken off of his shoulders, and he was just never the same. Whether it was concussion related, whether it was trusting the fact that he's not going to get his brains completely lambasted in his skull. I don't know, but you just see things like that. And that's probably irresponsible of me to speculate on. So I do apologize, but you see stuff like that. You see like again, guys, like you're looking at Christian McCaffrey. Hey, he goes out and he, puts his all into running, and then he pulls a hamstring. And it's a pretty severe hamstring injury. And then you're like, okay, well, next time he comes back, is he going to be 100%? Is he going to trust his hamstring? Is he going to trust his body to not break down? And I think that's a situation where coming back from a concussion, you have to be even more cautious and more listen to your body even more because we know concussions don't have to be a gigantic hit or bouncing your head off the field. You could literally just,
whiplash.
Get pushed the wrong way, and you go to stop, and you stop too fast, and your brain, it kind of gets re-triggered again. And I don't, and I honestly, I feel like for Tua's sake and for the National Football League's sake, I don't know that we should see him again this year. Mm-hmm. Because if he gets another concussion this year, yikes.
Yeah,
yikes.
I mean that could be some serious things. I agree. I agree with you on that, and I'm not saying this, again as a fan of a team in the AFC East that's not the Miami Dolphins or whatever.
And real quick before you mention what you're going to say, I was just going to say, and just for record keeping purposes, if this were the Bills and it were Josh Allen in that situation, I would say the exact same thing.
Absolutely, because it's more than that. It's more than football, and it's more than allegiance. It's human life, and like again, the National Football League moves on regardless of what happens. They're not stopping anything, for on the account of one person. It's just a sad and unfortunate truth. It's a business, and past your playing career, you have to, you have to take care of yourself during your playing career because you're going to have a post-playing career with people that are your family, kids, etc., that are going to need you present there. So taking care of yourselves during the game is, playing career is important. That's where we're going with this, folks. But that was I should have saved that for BLTD. My apologies.
That's okay.
But
that's okay. That's what we're here for.
Back to the rematch, though, really quickly. I
got some good stats for you really quick. Because I'm always searching Twitter during the podcast, trying to find new and exciting things here. Found a tweet from earlier today. Heath Cummings, who is a fantasy football or fantasy sports writer for CBS Sports, at Heath Cummings SSR on Twitter. He says, feels like this week should just be a celebration of how lucky we are to have Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen in our football Josh Allen in our football lives. I'll try to do my part. Most passing touchdowns since the start of the 2018 season. Patrick Mahomes leads the National Football League with 166. Second most, Aaron Rodgers at 144. Here's a delicious one for you with a blast from the past. 16 players in NFL history have at least 115 passing touchdowns and 30 rushing touchdowns. Dante Culpepper played the second fewest games on the list with 105. Josh Allen did it in 66 games.
Wow. 66 games. That's absurd. That really is. I don't know, man. That's some good stuff.
Yeah.
I hate to go old. That's a true story on you there, but I mean, what can you say to that?
There's not much. I mean, it's crazy to think. It's just crazy. It's crazy. The whole thing's crazy. I mean, because again, if you look back, revisionist history here, but if you look back when the Buffalo Bills traded the pick to the Chiefs for the Chiefs to draft Patrick Mahomes and he became Patrick Mahomes, you're like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way the Buffalo Bills could get any quarterback who could level up
right
to Patrick Mahomes and make that, not look back at that and say, wow, what a total screw up that was.
Absolutely.
But the guy they drafted turned out to be pretty goddamn good.
I would say so. Yes, I would say so for sure.
I mean, if the Bills went out and drafted, ended up getting, Sam Darnold, no offense, or Baker Mayfield or Josh Rosen, you might be like, wow, that was a monumental screw up. But it turns out it actually helped the Buffalo Bills out, and they've got a pretty damn good quarterback on their side of the ball too.
Absolutely. So who you got?
I'm gonna go Bills, baby. Bills by $1 billion. I'm going to say, I think the defense is going to stand up, but this offense is going to ball out against that defense. I mean, I'm thinking, 31-21 Bills.
31-21 Bills. I'm going to go. See, I always look at the matchup predictor on ESPN to kind of get a gauge as to what the public is thinking. 56.8% right now feel the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win to the 42.6% for Buffalo. And I don't know that I agree with that. This one's going to be a real tough one. I'm also going Bills, but I'm going to say 38-35 Buffalo.
It's fair. Again, I think at the end of the day, we're going to go Bills in this matchup no matter what, because I want to see the Bills beat the Chiefs so goddamn bad.
Well, I'm going with them because I think that they're, despite the injuries, I think that they're healthier.
I think so too, but I also think the Bills are more depth. To see Kansas City struggle last night was strange.
It was strange, but you got to remember too, the AFC West is a very tough division, top to bottom. Well, maybe not so much for Denver, but
it also gave me hope
else
to see Max Crosby, Chandler Jones get to Patrick Mahomes. That was good. Again, I don't think that you can play soft coverage with the Chiefs, which teams still think that they can do that. The Chiefs offense definitely a little different without Tyreek Hill, but it's still Patrick Mahomes. He still finds ways to make it happen. I mean, for God's sake, Travis Kelce had 4 touchdowns on Monday Night Football. Like, they find ways to get open. You just have to be able to put enough pressure on Patrick Mahomes where you're not blitzing him, because if you blitz him, you're essentially just giving him a free play. But that's just how the statistics break down. But you're able to get natural pressure on him and also get to him quick enough that his very fast wide receivers and very talented wide receivers and tight ends don't have the ability to get open, which we see all the time. And it's so frustrating to watch, but hopefully the Bills can, hopefully after that, because again, we've seen the Bills, it's not very often they get burned. It's one of those things where, they don't get burned twice. If it happens once, shame on me. Second time, they'll figure it out. And it seems like they are able to figure it out. It's like when they play the Dolphins again later this year, I don't think you're going to see the same type of matchup. So again, I think after that game, after that playoff loss, this team is motivated. Josh Allen is motivated. They want to go out and make a statement to the National Football League that they are for real. They are the best team in the league. and essentially the Super Bowl goes through Buffalo.
I do believe that the AFC for sure is going to go through Buffalo in the playoffs. But either way, get your popcorn ready because Sunday is about to be a banger.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I don't think we can end it any better. I'm Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD. John at I am JC Money. We are Trust the Podcast.
You're not.
We will catch you same time, same place next week. As always, thank you for tuning in, and go Bills.
Get your popcorn ready.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.